All right, let's go ahead and go through this together. Now, remember, your solution may be different from mine. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it's a different solution. And we can learn from each other's solutions. Some may be more efficient. Some may be cleaner. But we can learn from all of them. But remember, if it accomplishes the task, then it's not incorrect. All right, now this exercise will give you a chance to use promises, but you will also need to write the functions for processing the data. And so I kind of liked this exercise for that reason, because in addition to giving you a chance to apply promises, I'm hoping this exercise will be a chance to learn and practice other concepts. And since we are processing data here, you've probably noticed we can apply some of those functional programming techniques that we've discussed in the functional programming section. So I'm going to plan to do that with my solution. So if mine looks a little bit different than yours, it may be because of my approach. All right, let's go ahead and look at how we're going to build the promise with using the Fetch API. All right, so first, I need to fetch some data. Now, if we came out to that site, we would see it gives us examples of how to do that, all right, as we discussed in previous topics. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that in the URL, and JSON placeholder like that dot typicode.com, and then I just want to-dos, and so that's going to be the location I'm accessing. And then now I always indent the then method, so putting a tab there, this helps me keep it together, keep all of the same statement together. So we have a then method that we need to handle, that we will use to handle the response object that's returned with this fetch statement. And so we need to pass a function into the then method, and the variable I'm going to set up for holding the response object will be response. And then what do we want to do with that response object? Well, remember, we need to use either the JSON method or the text method to convert the data that's in the response object to something that is usable. I'm going to use the JSON method. I want it in a JSON format so I can work with it in JavaScript. JSON data can be converted to JavaScript object very easily, and so I plan to use it that way. Then we have to use another then method because this JSON method returns a promise as well. And so I'm going to set up another function. It's going to receive the JSON object, and then I'm going to put curly braces here because I'm going to need to do more with this particular function that I'm creating here. Initially, I'm just going to log to the console what I got back, just to see if we got all of the posts. So that's all I'm doing initially, is logging to the console. Oops, I put a semicolon here. I don't want a semicolon. I want to put a catch statement in case there's a problem. I want to set this up so we can retrieve the message, and I'm just going to log an error to the console. Boy, I cannot type. And I'll just put that as the message there, and then we'll tack on here, we'll concatenate the actual message that was received if there is a problem. All right, so we have this much set up. We've made use of the then method to handle the promises returned by the fetch method, and then the then method to handle the promises returned using the JSON method on the response object. And then we added a catch method here to handle any problems. So if we save that, let's just take a look at what we're getting here. Have an array of 200, and let's just see if those are posts. And yep, they look like they're posts. So we're getting what we need. All right, So we've gotten that far in our exercise. Now, what am I going to do at this point? Well, I need to filter a list to include only to-dos for user number 2 and also only to-dos that have not been completed. And then finally, from those, extract out the title and build an array of those. So before I start looking at those functions, let me just come down here. I want to show you what I'm going to do. One of the things we like to do with functional programming is basically chaining functions together. And many times we can do that when we're working with methods. In this case, I'm going to be working with methods of an array. And so let me show you what I'm going to do here at the end. I want to declare a variable that's going to contain the final posts, actually the title of those posts. And I'm going to use the JSON object I've received here. And remember, that's going to be an array of objects. We know that by looking at the JSON placeholder data. An array right there of objects. And since that's an array of objects, I can use an array method. And I'm going to use filter first. And let's say I filter out those that belong to user number 2. And then I'm going to indent this because I'm chaining these together. I'm going to use filter again. And this time I'm going to filter out those that are not completed. And then finally, I'm going to take that array that's left. Remember, all these are acting on array. So filter will return an array, and then we'll act on that again with the filter method on that array. It will return an array, and then I'm going to act on it one more time, and this time I'm going to use the map method because I want to go through that array, and I just want to retrieve all the titles and place them in a new array. And so the final results will get placed in this post variable. Okay, so I've got that structure set up. All I need to do now is just to create the functions that I'm going to use here, here, and here. Now remember, the function that is passed in to the filter method is a predicate function, meaning it returns either true or false. If it's true, then the item will be included in the new array. If it's false, it will not be included. So here we're going to filter out everything that belongs to user 2. That will be included in the array that will be passed to this filter method, and then we'll filter out those that are not completed, which will be passed into an array that will be included and acted on by the map method, and we'll just pull out the title, and that's what's going to get returned to post. And then the final thing here is we'll just log that to the console just to make sure we got what we wanted. Okay, so that's all we're going to do. So now I can set up my functions up here. So first, let's see. Let's go ahead and create. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create an isUser function. And this is a user function. It's going to take 2 parameters, an ID of the user and then an object. And what we're going to do is return whether obj.userID, is equal to the ID that's passed in. That's all we're doing here. Now, how do we know we need to access that? Well, once again, it's because we look at the data here, user ID, and so we're aware of what we're trying to access. All right. Now, that's all I'm going to do. However, in order to use this function here, I need to make some modifications. I need to have the obj parameter as the first parameter. And so we can bind this ID here. So here's a function I've created that I can use over and over with different user IDs, but I can bind the ID to the function I'm going to use in this example here. And I can create that as a separate function. I could do something like this, call it isUser2, and then I simply call isUser.bind, bind, and I pass in null for this keyword, and then 2 for the ID. And that would give me a function I could place here. Now I want to show something else. I know this doesn't have to do with promises, but I like showing different things as we do some of these exercises. So I could have done all of this just down here as well. If I didn't want to create a user2 function and have it out there permanently, like if this was the only place I was going to be using it, I could have just done the bind down here like that. And that would have worked for me fine. Because remember, bind returns a function. And so all of this right here is going to return a function that will be passed into filter. So it's just like what we've done up here and putting isUser2 down in these parentheses instead of what I've done there. All right, so see how that works? Now, I need a function that's going to filter out those that are not completed. So let's create another one. Let's call this isNotComplete. It's going to receive an object. When it's used in a filter method, it will receive an object, an item of that array. Each item as it iterates through it, and each of those items is an object. And then what are we going to do? Well, we want to check obj.completed. Remember, we know that because of the data completed, obj.completed, but we want those that are not completed. So we want to reverse that. So if it's false, we want it to be true so that it's included in the next array. By returning true, it will be included in the next array that will be passed to the map method. Finally, we need a function for the map method. And all this one's going to do is retrieve the title property. That's all it's doing. So I'm going to call this getTitle. And we're going to receive, obj is the variable that's going to receive the item as it iterates through every item in that array. And then we're simply going to return obj.title. Okay. Now we can just put isNotComplete here. And getTitle. Now I like this solution. I like how this works out. And that's why I chose to use this functional approach. I like how clean it is. All right. So let's just test this. So we're going to save that there. Oh, we're still getting 200. So something's not quite right. Let's see. Did I not save it? Let's try that again. Come back out. Oh, there we go. Now we got the right information. We're seeing that we've got titles here. That's all we've got in this array. And we've got a total of 12 of them. Now, how could we verify that we're getting the right information? Well, I could just comment out this last chaining here. And instead, we're going to get those. We'll get the entire object of those that are not complete for user2. Save that again. Come out here. We're seeing 12. User ID is 2. We can see completed is false. Some of those we can't see all of it. We can open it up and see that completed is false. So it looks like it's definitely working for us. So I'd come back in and do that. And there we have our solution. Hopefully you're able to apply promises, and hopefully you're able to learn something from going through this together. All right, let's move on.